Gemini, let us talk about the second half of November 2025 and the kind of story it is writing for you. If you have Gemini as your sun sign, your moon, your rising, or your Venus, this message is speaking directly to the part of you that is always thinking, always connecting, always asking, what does this mean? The first half of November may have felt noisy in your mind and in your schedule. Many moving parts, messages, opinions, decisions, and shifting plans. Some days it may have felt exciting. Other days it may have felt like your brain was a crowded room and you could not find a quiet corner. Now, as we move into mid month, the energy begins to focus. The universe is not trying to shut down your curiosity, it is trying to help you sort it. You are being guided away from scattered thinking and toward meaningful conversations and choices. Instead of trying to keep up with every thread, you are invited to tune into the few that really matter. This is not about becoming less Gemini. It is about becoming a more centered version of yourself inside the motion. You may notice a growing urge to tell the truth more directly, both to others and to yourself. In the first half of the month, it may have been easier to keep things light, to joke, to change the subject, or to dance around uncomfortable topics. Mid November asks what happens if you stop running mental loops and simply say what you really think and what you really need. The answer might surprise you. It is not more chaos, it is more clarity. In love and relationships, this shift can be felt strongly. Gemini often moves between worlds, between ideas, between moods, between people. You are capable of connecting with many kinds of energy, and that is a gift. Yet in the second half of November, your heart wants something deeper. Not just connection, but consistency. Not just conversation, but emotional truth beneath the words. If you are in a relationship, you may notice where communication has become clever, but not always honest. Maybe you deflect with humor when something hurts. Maybe your partner changes the topic when things get too serious. Maybe the two of you talk all the time about logistics and plans, yet rarely speak about what you are both afraid of or dreaming of. Mid-month can bring moments that push you past that surface level, a misunderstanding that shows where you are not really hearing each other, a vulnerable moment that opens a door to more intimacy if you are willing to walk through. You might feel the need to ask clearer questions. What do we both want next? How safe do we feel being fully ourselves together? What conversations keep repeating because we have not yet touched the real issue underneath? When you dare go there and you do it with kindness rather than blame, you create room for your relationship to evolve. For some Gemini people, this means a new level of commitment. For others, it means realizing where you have been keeping a door half open and deciding whether to fully step in or fully step out. If you are single, the second half of November encourages you to examine the stories you tell yourself about love. Gemini is a sign of narrative. You can spin a quick story about almost anyone. Sometimes that story keeps you entertained. Other times it keeps you attached to people who are not actually showing up for you in the present moment. You may be ready now to look at whether you fall in love with potential more than with reality, whether you enjoy the chase and the banter more than the steady work of building trust. This does not mean you should become less flirtatious or less playful. That is part of your magic. It does mean you might start to ask yourself different questions when you meet someone new. Not only do we have chemistry, but also do I feel mentally respected, emotionally safe? Do our values and long-term visions have any overlap? Can we sit in silence without needing to fill it with chatter? These questions help you choose connections that feed your mind and your heart rather than only your curiosity. There's also a self-love layer in your relationships this month. You are learning to value your own attention and your own words. You do not have to give endless access to people who are inconsistent, confusing, or dismissive of your feelings. Your ability to see many sides of a situation does not mean you must tolerate behavior that leaves you anxious or drained. When you draw clearer boundaries around your time and your emotional bandwidth, your relationships become less chaotic and more real. Turn now to work, career, and money. Here, too, the theme is focused clarity. Early November may have brought a lot of mental stimulation, new ideas, new tasks, new options. Perhaps too many. You might have felt scattered between projects or roles. Some Gemini individuals may have started several things at once and are now wondering which ones deserve real follow through. The second half of the month is your moment to prioritize. You are especially supported now in choosing one or two key directions to give your best attention. That does not mean ignoring everything else. It means admitting that you cannot think your way into 5 different futures all at once. You might sit down and ask yourself, which of my current projects or goals has the most potential to move my life forward over the next year? Which tasks keep me busy, but do not actually build anything lasting? Which commitments came from genuine desire and which came from fear of missing out? You may feel nudged to have honest conversations about your role and your value. At work, that could mean clarifying responsibilities, speaking up in meetings where you have stayed quiet, or asking for changes that match the reality of what you are doing. If you are self employed or creative, this could mean refining your offers, cleaning up your messaging, or finally sharing something you have been endlessly editing but never releasing. The universe is gently reminding you that ideas live fully only when they are put into motion. With money, there is a call to become more aware of where your funds are really going. Gemini can at times treat spending as a series of small, spontaneous decisions: a coffee here, a subscription there, a gadget, a course, a night out, a sudden treat because the day was stressful. None of that is wrong in itself. The question mid month is whether your spending habits match the story you want your future to tell. This is a powerful time to track rather than judge, to look at the pattern and ask what it reveals about your deeper needs and worries. You might decide to make one practical change that brings more order to your finances. That could be setting a limit around impulse buys. It could be dedicating a certain amount to savings each month, even if it feels small. It could be paying attention to where money leaks out through services you no longer use. These small actions are like clearing mental tabs on a browser. Suddenly, you have more space to think and more energy to create. Beneath everything that is happening on the outside, your inner world is going through a meaningful shift. For Gemini, the mind is both a gift and a challenge. You can overthink until your feelings get trapped in loops. You can gather so many perspectives that you lose track of your own. Mid-November invites you to give your mind a different job. Instead of constantly scanning for new input, it is time to help you process what you already know. You may notice memories resurfacing of times when your voice was dismissed or misunderstood. Perhaps you were told you talked too much or changed your mind too often. Perhaps you learned to hide how deeply you feel behind jokes, facts, or endless questions. Now you are ready to honor that younger version of yourself, to tell them your ability to see many angles is not a flaw. It simply needs grounding so it can become wisdom instead of anxiety. This can be a good time to write things down, not only to make lists, which you probably do well, but to let your thoughts and emotions spill onto the page without editing. When you see your inner monologue written out, you may realize how much pressure you put on yourself to always know the right thing to say, to always keep up with everything happening, to always adapt. You do not have to earn your place through cleverness. You already belong. Your intuition is sharpening now, too. Gemini intuition often comes as a sudden phrase in your mind, a sentence that appears out of nowhere, a random thought that sticks, or a quick flip in your stomach when something does not line up. The second half of November encourages you to pay more attention to those moments rather than immediately explaining them away. If you get a quiet sense that a conversation is not honest, if you feel that a path is opening or closing, pay attention. You do not need every piece of evidence before you allow yourself to trust the first signal. Spiritually, this time asks for a different kind of mental activity. Less constant analysis, more conscious presence. You might be drawn toward practices that combine movement and thought, such as walking meditation, chanting, mindful stretching, or even simply talking to yourself out loud in a private space in an honest way. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to let your thoughts flow instead of letting them ricochet endlessly inside your skull. You are also being invited to reconsider the stories you tell about who you are. Gemini identity can be wonderfully flexible. You can reinvent yourself many times in one lifetime. Yet under all those versions, there is a steady thread that wants recognition. Mid-month is a good moment to sit with questions like, what parts of me always remain no matter how my life changes? What do I actually want my voice to stand for? If people remember me for a few things, what do I hope those are? As November moves toward its closing days, you may start to notice that the internal noise is turning into something more like music. Still full of different notes and instruments, yet pulling together into a theme. You understand why certain patterns keep repeating, and you begin to respond differently. You might talk a little less and listen a little more when your intuition whispers. You may feel less need to explain yourself to people who have already shown they will not understand. You begin to recognize that your energy is better spent on the conversations that light you up and move you forward. In love, that might mean choosing depth over distraction, allowing yourself to get to know one person more fully instead of scattering your energy across multiple maybes. Or if you are partnered, it might mean choosing one real conversation about feelings instead of 10 surface level talks about plans. In work, it might mean picking one main priority each day that must move forward, no matter how many messages or requests come in. In your own inner world, it might mean giving yourself 10 minutes of quiet without your phone, even if that feels oddly uncomfortable at first. The beauty of this period is that it does not ask you to shut down your many-sided mind. It asks you to become the editor of your own story, instead of letting every random thought become the main headline. When you do that, your natural gifts really shine. Your ability to connect ideas becomes innovation. Your talent for language becomes healing and inspiration. Your curiosity becomes a path to wisdom instead of a way to escape yourself. Remember that this Gemini message is only one piece of your larger cosmic picture. To really understand how November is moving through your life, listen also to the horoscopes for your sun, your moon, your rising, and your Venus signs. Your rising sign often describes the kind of outer experiences and changes that show up on your path. Your moon sign reveals how those events feel on the inside and how your emotional patterns respond. Your sun sign highlights where you are meant to grow and express your core self. Your Venus sign shows how love, money, harmony, and attraction are weaving through your story right now. You can also explore the horoscopes for the people around you. Listening to the messages for your partner, your crush, your friends, your children, even your coworkers can open your eyes to what they might be carrying. Instead of assuming you see the whole picture, you gain a sense of the spiritual weather they are walking through. That knowledge can soften conflict and make it easier to communicate with care rather than reaction. When you want to go deeper than a general reading and into something more personal and interactive, visit mysticbolt.com. There you will find tarot card spreads designed to help you make decisions in love, career finances, and life direction. You will find astrology tools that let you explore your chart and see how your patterns have been shaping your choices. You will also discover a growing collection of spiritual and divination apps created to support you through exactly these kinds of turning points. For now, Gemini, take a breath and remember this truth. You do not have to think your way into being worthy. You already are. The second half of November is here to help you clear mental clutter speak from your real voice and choose the conversations and paths that actually nourish your future. When you do that, your mind is not a cage. It becomes the wings that carry you exactly where you are meant to go.